Welcome to the OTech Talks podcast, where it's all about working on Oracle technologies. You will hear the latest Oracle tech information, and your host, Kashif Manzoor, brings together product overviews, how-tos, best practices, tips and tricks, and troubleshooting techniques.
Good morning, good afternoon. Today we have a guest speaker, Sylvia Worsham. She's an author, a coach, and I can say a life coach. And she's also running a mastermind groups and supporting them. And the good thing I realized it when I was trying to get Sylvia Worsham on my show, that being a tech folks, we sometimes need to also have someone who is not working in tech, and then he or she come on board and can tell us that, apart from technology, there is another world, and how people are doing it, or how you can relate to the things which you need to do in not only in technology. So let's welcome Sylvia. Welcome to the Open Tech Talks. And if you can start with introducing yourself, that will be really appreciated.
Okay. Thank you, Kashif. It's a pleasure to meet you finally in person. I'm Sylvia Worsham. I am an author of Journey to Me, Trust the Wisdom of Change, which is my first book published in 2021. I'm a life coach, as you mentioned, and I didn't start out that way at all. I started off in corporate America and sales, so in top, very stressful situations. And I did that because I grew up with a perfectionist and high achiever father who is a retired surgeon. And I was modeled that growing up. And so I thought my idea of happiness was I needed to achieve. I needed to be successful. And my father was very big on education. And coming from an immigrant background here in the United States, that was a really big push. And so my mother, along with our father, kind of pushed the three siblings to get higher education and be successful and live the American dream. And we did, all three of us. I got into the corporate world. I made tons of money in sales. I worked for the pharmaceutical giant Pfizer for many, many years. And somewhere in the middle of all this, I had a near-death experience. I received 3 miracles within 72 hours in 2012, and it kind of just stopped me dead in my tracks. And it forced me to analyze my life from a different perspective, from a different lens, if you will. Because for the first part of my life, I was operating from a space of fear. I didn't feel enough. So I pushed myself to perfection, to the point of exhaustion, and my body gave out. And you hear this in popular culture in a lot of books, like Thrive. Ariana Huffington talks about this a lot. And people come to a breaking point or a big major turning point, and then it forces them to look at their life and start again, if you will, start anew. And that's the gist of where I come from. So I understand big corporations and the cultures and the stresses that come associated with them. But I also have seen the other side of it. Like you said, there's another side to life that is more than just achieve, be successful, achieve that dream. There's more to it. And when you die and you don't get a second chance, well, you don't get to experience that. But I got to experience a second chance and the other side of that. So I'm grateful to be here and to answer and kind of join in on a really important topic, I think, out there in the world today.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned you were working in a sales, and I also support the sales organization in my current role, where we support the technology sales. So I can relate to those sales pressures and quarter closing and all that, which everybody is going through it. And I can relate the story.
The bottom line. We know the bottom
bottom
line.
line is,
We feel the bottom
yeah,
line in sales, and it's a
yeah.
constant drive, isn't it? Like you feel
Mhm.
this pull to just more and more, and the more you give, the more they want you to give. At least that was my
Mhm.
experience here in the United States. I don't know how it is abroad.
It's everywhere, I think. Sales
Okay.
is sales everywhere.
Okay. I was just curious on that because every culture is different. Like in France, when I lived in France, they were a completely different culture. And I remember seeing American companies trying to go abroad and do business the same way they did business here in the States, and they kind of failed a little bit at it because the culture would clash. So that's why I was curious if in your country it was the same way or not.
Cultures are definitely different, but bottom line is to get the numbers right. Whatever the cultures you
Right?
operate, whatever the model you operate. So let's come back to the way. So and then you another thing mentioned, which is I think important while working in sales organization. So when do you know, or what happened that leads you to yet that you need to change and want to become what you are doing now? What was that trigger point?
Well, the trigger point was receiving a second chance at life. That was really the beginning of that shift where I
Mm-hmm.
stopped and looked at what is my divine purpose? Why am I here? Why did I get a second chance at life? Because a lot of people that had my diagnosis would have died, and I didn't. And I received 3
Mm-hmm.
different miracles that kept me alive over a 72-hour period and really shocked the medical community in Houston, Texas, which is a big medical center here in where I live. And it's hard to ignore situations like that because they wake you up in a way that no other situation or circumstance can. When you're facing death, it brings everything into a very quick view, and you realize that how you've been operating, you've not been operating at the optimal level that you can,
Mm-hmm.
and the more joyful level, if you will. And I started to, like, the time after I survived the near death, I had pulmonary embolisms, for those that don't know, and that's deadly. You know, one is deadly, and I had multiple, and I had a big one that was really putting my life in danger. And the doctors were really surprised I was still alive. And I had a very empowering moment in the ICU on Easter Sunday morning that really propelled me to search for my divine purpose and to be very grateful to God, because I'm a very faith person, and I've been for a long time. But that was the shift that I felt that really propelled me to start seeking my true purpose. Why was I here? And it took years because our programming in our mind, we program our minds to be a certain way, and old habits die hard. And my habits were really ingrained in me to achieve for success. And it takes time to unravel those layers, if you will, when they've been ingrained in you and modeled to you for your whole life. So I wish I could tell you that it happened immediately. It didn't. I survived in 2012, and in 2017 is when I felt the prompting to become a speaker, coach, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. And I essentially went from being a stay-at-home parent to then propelling into that life and learning and being more personal growth oriented, if you will. So that was the trigger point for me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, and I hope everything is okay now.
Oh yeah.
Now, as you shifted towards after 5-7 years, now what are you doing now? I mean, you wrote a book. So what are your day-to-day life? How you spend time to coach? When I say coach, is it like one-on-one coaching, or what actually? How you pass your message?
I actually have designed, the latest thing I've been working on is the 3-level masterminds. that I will be
Okay.
launching soon. And it's been a major shift in my business, because in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I got the prompting to write a book. And at first I was like, what am I going to write about? Right? I mean, there was so much time, right? And we had our kids at home
Right.
and couldn't leave. And so I'm a mom to an 8-year-old. So she's currently in 3rd grade, and I have a college student. So I had those children at home. And I started to write the book, and I began to see like my divine purpose being an author. And so from 2021 to now, I've been writing books. I wrote the first book, and then I collaborated in 4 additional projects. And so I've been writing a lot and promoting a lot on podcast interviews on those books to promote the message of change and how it's an opportunity. So the 3 masterminds that I've been designing now are in alignment with the levels that I coach on. So the very first level is freedom from fear. And so usually people, when they come into my practice, they really don't understand the concept of limiting beliefs and how they operate in your mind and how they control your actions and steer your choices in life. So the very first mastermind is 90 weeks, and it gives you a very big, broad view on the power of the 2 minds and how you can work with your subconscious mind, which is the most powerful one, to work in your favor instead of against you, like it did to me. Like I was a high achiever and a perfectionist, and I didn't feel enough. And that promoted my work in sales, and it kept me in that loop for a long time, but I wasn't happy. Right. And then I had to have a turning point, a major change. And then the second level that builds on that one, once you understand how your fear is really operating in your mind and in your life, and you start making changes, then the second level is joy in the journey, because no matter what happens in your life, there's joy, pockets of joy along it. And some of us are grieving aging parents, and change is still coming at us, but there's joy to be found, and how gratitude starts to shift our mindset and can really help us live a more integrated life. It's not always about work. It's not always about, personal. It's the integration of these 2 identities that it's important. And then the third and final level is how to really surrender and trust that inner voice inside of you. And some people call it universe, and some people call it God, and others call it Jesus. And everybody has a different term for it. When that third level, it's about full and total surrender to that soul identity. That identity that when you were first created, you were when you were a baby, before trauma and your modeling, layered, like formed these layers around you, right? And created the person you are today, right? So we're coming full circle on those 3 masterminds. And that's what I've been working on primarily, and building that, and now shifting my coaching practice from one-on-one to more mastermind, because I think that model is better.
Okay, so I think let me relate my story, and with the fear which you said covered the first one, and I think being a host and going through the same journey. For example, I am doing these podcasts, I think more than 7-8 years on and off, but I never ever posted myself to my social channels. Until 2 months back. I mean, I was always feeling the same. I'm relating to your point of view, right? Like that, okay, I don't know what people will say. It could be a rejection, it could be some comments. And I was just also holding back, that I was not sharing myself. I was just recording it, posting it. It was going automatically. Okay. And from last month, a month back, I shared 2 or 3, and I said nothing happened. There's there was no bomb blast, and then nothing happened. That okay, people don't care about it, right? So, but that's true, and I think that's I can relate to my story, and similarly, maybe because as I work in a technology, we can relate to a public speaking or to relate to any other area. So maybe now being a coach, So similar to me, there are other folks. What could be the to the guidance you can give them, to me even?
Still put yourself out there. Did you feel a pull to do that? To step vulnerably and to share about yourself? That came from somewhere, didn't it? I'm asking you now. Did it come from somewhere to act in that direction?
Yeah, I was just questioning myself that why I was not doing. And then one day, it keep coming, boiling in my mind. I said, okay, let's do it, man. Forget about it.
Yeah.
So it was like too much,
But there's also that fear of like, if I share too much, what's going to happen? Like, what will people think of me? Did that come up for you? Because I know it came up for me when my inner voice was
That's
saying,
why I was not doing it.
Share these vulnerable chapters of your life. And I'm like, I don't really want to. But there's this pull that you feel to do it, and there's a reason behind it. Now, sometimes you may not think so, but people are reading your post. They may not have the courage to like or comment, but they're being seen. So they're meant for someone else. Like sometimes the gift we have inside of us is meant to be shared for the betterment of humanity. Like your podcast, right? Like I remember our first exchanges is like, well, you talk about tech. I'm not a tech person. How can I help you? And you said, no, I think there's a different side to this that I think would really benefit my community. And you're not wrong, because a lot of that business focus is good, but it becomes detrimental when at the root of it is a fear-based belief that's driving it. The motivation is off, right? And if the motivation is off, eventually you're going to run out of steam, and your body may actually do something similar that what mine did, where the stress gets too much, and then you have a medical crisis and something that stops you dead in your tracks. And you don't want that to happen to people. You want them to be able to see it from afar and look at their belief systems and say, why am I actually doing this job? Is this filling my cup, or is it not? And I think those are questions that only you can ask yourself. But if you felt a pull to step into that, I say listen to that inner voice, because that's your soul identity guiding you, and that's not your fear stopping you. Does that make sense? And I point to the mind because that's where fear exists. It's in your subconscious programming, where you got the modeling from your parents, perhaps, something that your mind took as natural, and then said, well, this is what I believe about myself. Like I believed I wasn't enough for my dad, who was a workaholic. And he really, truly was a workaholic. He worked more than 50, 60 hours a week, and I rarely saw my father. And I was even talking to my 8-year-old about it yesterday, how lucky she was to have a dad, my husband, who's very hands-on. And he's an electrical engineer. This guy is super busy, has a full-time job, and come 5, 6 o'clock says, I want to be with my family, and there's another side to my life.
Cool.
It's not just about work. So I say, if you feel the pull, step in with confidence and faith, and believe it or not, later on, you're going to see why you felt the pull and the effects and the impact that had on humanity.
All right. Great. Thank you. So maybe leading to this one, as now you're doing from so many years. So anything which comes in your mind that, okay, what's one thing you wish that before doing this, before starting this one, there was anything which sometimes comes in your mind?
Yes. Oh, plenty. In fact, after I wrote the book, I was like, wow, I wish I'd known this a lot sooner. Was my belief systems were lies that I believed for a long time to be true. The I'm not enough was something that formed when I was so young, and I couldn't fully grasp the full view of my father and his work, because men are providers and protectors, right? That's the big drive for men. And
Right.
as they're building their kingdom, they will drive and drive to build this kingdom for their family because they love their family so much and they want to protect them. And it wasn't until I took a personal growth class with the John Maxwell team that gratitude was what actually helped me shift that mindset around, that belief around, to everything that my father did money-wise. Like, because I used to view money as a negative thing, or making money as a negative thing, because I was a little kid and I didn't understand what my father was doing. And now I see the full picture of why he strove so deeply, because he had this love for his family and he wanted to be the best provider, and he was very big, right? And when I started to look back at what that money had, how it had helped me in my life, how I had the opportunity to study abroad in France because of the money my father made, and how I was afforded a college education, and how I was able to start my business based on the money he had made over time and how he had protected his family, I started to see him in a different light. And that has really been a change for me. When you understand how those beliefs have steered your choices in life, you will understand what you need to do now to start to shift that fear into a more loving, affirmative belief. So the I'm not enough turns into I am enough. And there's it's just something that my mind created a long time ago, before I was able to logically be able to see this. This is an emotional response. So that I wish I had known, because that would have saved me a ton of money in personal growth development courses and certifications. I mean, that would have been just like the best thing for me. And it would have improved my relationship with my father, right? Which is a good thing now. I'm glad I'm healed. Now my parents are older and they're aging, and time is running out, basically, right? The time we can spend with our loved ones.
True. Okay, so now let's get some benefits from being as a coach to our audiences.
Sure.
Now, being a technology folks, most of my audiences, and doing a work, it could be a programmer or a developer, or maybe he's an IT manager. Sometimes you feel you're overwhelmed with a lot of work, or maybe you have so much to do, and then you map this to one that you have a limited number of hours, and then you relate this, there is a work life or life work balance and all those things. So what could be some of the tips you can share with us that can help them to help us, or either to improve the goal setting, maybe, or could maybe taking into to work?
I love this question, because as broad as it is, we can break it up into little chunks. So I'm going to attempt to do that. So the very first thing that came to my awareness as you were speaking, and my consciousness, was self-care. And that's a big one. And that's something culturally, in many cultures, it's not something that gets promoted when we're young. I never saw it really with my father or my mom. And I'm full-blooded Mexican. So self-care and self-love are foreign concepts, right? So let's break it down. Self-care really is, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of the people that you want to take care of. So if you're a man and you're providing for your family, by taking care of yourself first, you are able to take care of your family at a much higher level than what you're currently doing right now. And so what can you do self-care wise? And this is really pretty simple. Put it on your calendar, because like everything, it's like a meeting with yourself, right? A meeting. And start small, because when you're creating new habits, you want to start small so you don't quit halfway through, because your mind will kind of throw some things in the mix to kind of make you quit
Mm-hmm.
halfway through if it's not something that you're used to. So just however it
Right.
works for you. For me, it worked 30-minute chunks, but that's what works for me. Do 5 minutes at a time if you want. So the very first thing
Mm-hmm.
for self-care, let's look at the mental and emotional aspect. You could do meditation or prayer first
Mm-hmm.
thing in the morning
Mm-hmm.
when you first wake up. Instead
Right.
of grabbing your phone and looking at your emails, put that phone away
Mm-hmm.
unless it's for meditation purposes, and then
Right.
start very, very small and just
Mm-hmm.
make it a habit. 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day.
Right.
Once you master it, you increase it. You know how to do this because you're in the tech world and you have goals that you have to achieve, right? So if you're in sales, you start small and you increase. You go for the low hanging fruit first, right?
Right.
So think
Right.
of this as low hanging fruit and do this first, right? On the physical aspect of things, exercise, a walk in nature, even just anything that really fills your cup with joy is what you
Mm-hmm.
want to throw into the mix. For me, it's pickleball.
Right.
But for other
Mm-hmm.
people, it could be basketball, it could be soccer, it could
Cool.
be, I don't know, lacrosse, whatever is
What?
in your country is what you guys do. Get together with friends. That's another way of also maybe doing the physical aspect of things and making it joyful for you.
Right.
On the spiritual side, it's very important that that is also promoted within you, because a lot of that inner voice and inner pull is very important to listen to, because that's what's going to lead you to more joy than what your mind is telling
Right.
you to do. Because right now your mind, if it's operating from fear, it's going to tell you how you can't do it, how you're not enough. Those are fearful beliefs, and that's something that you can start doing. So self-care and self-love are
Right.
first and foremost on the list. In terms of like habits, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an easy one
Right.
to tackle, right? So this is something I used to do at Pfizer long, long ago. Start, stop, and finish, and continue. So start, stop, and continue. So look at your habits, take an inventory of your habits. And we all have good habits and we
Yeah.
all have bad habits. And you know what they are. So
Right.
just put them on a list and put them on a chart, because you're tech and you got to be able to be visual, right? So let's be visual about
Right.
this. And then look at the ones that you can actually just stop doing altogether. In my case, for example, to give you, I had a very bad habit right before bed to start looking at the news on my phone. Bad habit. Why is that bad? Because look at all the negative information out there. It starts to speak into your being. You can't sleep. It keeps you from sleeping the full 8 hours, and it really depletes your energy. So you got to kind of look at
Right.
what those habits are, and are they giving you energy, or are they depleting your energy? Because you're going to need energy to be able to do your job and integrate into your personal life. Both of those to see if I didn't want to overwhelm your community, and I wanted to see if you had any questions on anything I've given so far.
No, that's great. I think these wonderful 3 points to start with that. Excellent. Thank you. And now, going back to your book.
Sure.
So what was the key some points which were covered in the book? So in your book, if someone wants to read it, what he can get out of it?
That change is truly an opportunity. It's not a negative thing that happens in your life. It's an opportunity to be able to get out of a fearful state and move more into joy and more into surrender. Because life is really about living out your gifts. Like whatever those gifts are that you've been given long ago when you were first created and born, you have a particular set of skills that makes you uniquely you. And that journey of life is about using all this opportunity that change is providing you to express those skills in and find that divine purpose and live it out fully with as much joy as you can. And really, it's about turning inward for those answers, because you're not going to find it outside of you. I tried. I tried for many years to find those answers, and that happiness that was so elusive And then at the end of that journey, I found that the happiness was always there all along.
Mm.
I just missed it because I was so focused on thinking and believing that success was outside of me when it was there all along.
Right.
So it's the journey from that fearful person and that trauma, that person that's carrying around all this trauma, to a person that is living their divine purpose with as much joy as possible. So those are like the three main points that you get from, and that's how the masterminds are designed. They're designed based on how the book kind of takes you from this fearful state to this joyful state, and then to this full surrender state of like, this is your life now. And when you have an issue come up, instead of operating from that space of your fearful mind, now you're operating from full surrender into what your inner wisdom is sharing with you. So,
all right. So maybe before closing, one more question.
Sure.
Over the last few years, and this is a common challenge, I think, for everyone. How you are able to say no to distractions, or maybe invitations, or maybe something which is taking your time, which you don't want to do it, but you also, and you keep saying yes to everything, and then you don't have time to do. So what could be some tip?
Like, the tip there is to really ask yourself, is this taking my energy, or is this giving me energy? And if the answer is it's taking my energy, then why am I doing this? And if it does not feel, and I'm saying this very specifically, if it does not feel in alignment to the person you are today and the person you are becoming, then it's probably something you shouldn't be doing. It's just a piece of your old identity. So this is where people start to like, wow, that's how life is. And yes, that's as easy as it sounds. It's a little harder to do, but the more you practice it, the more you ask yourself, you'll feel it inside of you, and you'll feel that pull, and that instinct will kick in. Listen to the instinct. Don't listen to your mind. Listen to the instinct.
Got it. Thank you so much for joining today and sharing your experience and wonderful tips. If audiences want to reach out to you, where could be some links or some website or
my website is sylviaworsham.com, and you'll find my books there, and you'll find the mastermind and a way to communicate with me and connect with me. And I'm really everywhere on social media, so I'm available to speak to people and answer any questions they have about this interview or anything else they're interested in.
All right. Thank you so much for joining Open Tech Talks. It's not a tech topic, but I felt that this is what is required, and I think it's even, I can say that yes, what was my thought before approaching you, and then I think we achieved the objective, because I'm believing it, because that's where this is out of technology world. You need to go out and think and then get something which can help you as a human being. Really appreciate. Thank you so much for joining and coming on board. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
At otechtalks.tv, it's a turf to share ideas, insights, and innovations.